Today I'm going to show you a little bit about knives, knife care, and some different cutting and chopping techniques for you to use in the kitchen. So these are really the only knives that you're going to need to have in the kitchen. A chef's knife, you can have a regular chef's knife, or also this is called a Santoku chef's knife and blade style. This is a utility knife. You'd also want one of these, and this matches this one. You can also have a utility knife that matches that kind of blade. And it's really just a preference thing. The main difference is the Santoku tends to have a flatter back versus having this much here. And also the shape of the blade, obviously, you can see is different. So it's very much preference. Some people feel safer because this has a little bit less of a point, but it shouldn't really matter. You want your blades to be sharp. A lot of people are afraid of sharp blades, but you're more likely to cut yourself with a dull blade than with a sharp blade. This is a honing steel. It is not sharpening. In fact, I recommend that you do not sharpen your blades with any kind of homemade sharpener unless you actually know what you're doing with a sharpening block. This will correct the edge of your blade. So as you cut, your blade will encounter nicks and it'll get a little bit out of alignment. There'll be little spots where it's out of alignment. And as you draw the honing steel across it, you push those spots back into alignment. So you're not removing metal, you're actually just pushing your blade back into alignment. So to hone your blade, one of the easiest ways and least intimidating ways is to do it like this. So you press the honing steel lightly against the board and you draw the blade across like this. And you're going to be going at about a 15 to 20 degree angle, depending on your blade. You can look it up. Each blade manufacturer should tell you about what you're going to be going at. So just a number of drawing back and forth, equal number on left and right. Another way you can do it is you hold them in each of your hands like this, and then across forwards. And if you want, you can go forwards across the blade as well. So if you check trying to cut, say, a tomato before you hone the blade, and then you do 4 to 5 laps on each side after honing a blade, you'll see that the blade cuts into the tomato much more easily. And that's why you're going to cut yourself less or not at all, because your blade is going to go straight into what you're cutting rather than having a hard time causing you to use a lot of pressure, and then you might skip off the thing that you're trying to cut and cut into your hand. So your grip on the knife is going to be something kind of like this. You want it relatively relaxed up toward the front. Your fingers are actually going to pinch the top of the blade. A lot of people grip the knife like this, and certainly you can cut like that, but your arm is going to hurt and you're going to have less control. So you're going to hold it relatively loosely, and you're going to do a movement like this. So the tip stays in contact if you can. Sometimes you're cutting larger things and you have to lift the tip, but you're sliding forward, and then it's like a wheel, like on a train. So we're going to cut off, do an onion. That's what most people ask to see. So you're going to cut in half through the root, keep the root there, and then when you cut things, you want to keep your hand like this, with your fingers tucked, your thumb behind your fingers, and your fingers kind of tucked over. And your blade is going to lay against your fingers. So the worst thing that happens is if you come way too high, you might take off part of your knuckle, but you're not going to take off the whole tip of your finger. So, and obviously you never want to be bringing your knife that high, so then you never risk that. So we're going to make a number of shallow cuts, not all the way to the root, close to the root, but not all the way to the root. Next thing we're going to do is cut across this way. Now this is a little bit harder. You can draw across. The other thing you can do is hold it up. Now I don't necessarily recommend this because this is not a stable surface. You typically don't want to cut on an unstable surface, but if you're careful, you can cut down like that. And again, you're not cutting all the way through. Then you turn it and you cut across. We're going to be safe like this. We're going to cut down and forward. So here you have a easily diced onion. Some toward the bottom might need a little bit extra cutting because your cuts might not have gone all the way through, but for the most part, got a nice diced onion. Next, I'm going to show you cutting something small, like a green onion. So like I said, you want to bring your fingers, hold it like that, use your thumb. You can use your thumb to push it up, depending on your angle, or you can kind of pull your fingers back, but you want it to be stable. And then something that's very long, depending on how comfortable you feel, you can kind of keep your fingers back and you don't need to keep all the way up here. If it's very long, you can keep your fingers well back, but typically if you want to be very safe, you would do it like this. Something like a carrot, your knife's going to come up a whole lot higher, but you're still going to use that same motion. So here it is. You can see the motion from that side. And you saw I had my thumb in the really the wrong spot. You should have your thumb back here. Here it is from the other side. And as you get better, you can choose. You can make them almost paper thin, or you can move it quickly and get much thicker pieces. One more little trick that I want to show you is a way to cut things like berries, grapes, cherry tomatoes, small round things like that. Put them on a cutting board. You can put another cutting board on top, or a plate, something that's flat and has a relatively large bottom. And then you take your knife, holding this, put it about halfway across, and you just cut right through the middle. That'll cut all of your stuff mostly in half. Sometimes you skive off to the side and it's not quite in half, but that'll cut a whole bunch of things very quickly versus taking each one and cutting in half like that.